Some miracles are not what they seem. Today, I'm going to be talking about 2012's Flight. I'm Shayde from the New Wave Nerds. Like and subscribe down below for more nerd content and commentary, and let's roll that intro. Today, I'm going to be talking about Flight. Troubling questions arise after airline pilot Whip Whitaker makes a miracle landing after a mid-air catastrophe. No spoiler review. I love this movie. It's been a movie I've wanted to watch for a very, very, very long time. My dad, he used to have a CD of Flight, and every time I'd see it, I always thought it looked pretty dang cool. Sometimes I'd walk in on him watching Flight, and I remember when I was a kid, I have a memory where he was watching the scene where the plane is actually crashing, and it kind of scared me. Now, of course, Denzel Washington is playing Captain Whip Whitaker. This was a perfect role for him. He portrayed this captain phenomenally. It deserved so many awards. Denzel Washington's performance in this gets you really, really, really in the heartstrings. You know, it pulls them like crazy. He is such a phenomenal actor, and every movie I see Denzel in, I don't really have a lot of bad things to say about him. Especially Denzel's role in the movie. He always pulls through, and he's one of those actors that treats acting like an art and not like a profession. There are a lot of actors out there right now that just treat it like a profession, like, oh, I just want my money. You know, I'm just doing this because it can make me big bucks. Denzel Washington has said time and time again how much this profession means to him and how artistic he loves being, and how it affects him when he sees other people just not taking it seriously at all. And that's one reason I love Denzel, and that's why I thought he was fantastic in this movie. Now, we have Don Cheadle, of course. I love Don Cheadle. You know, Don Cheadle's I love him as War Machine, of course. I think he's a fantastic War Machine. I think Don Cheadle's also just a genuinely good actor. Although, it can be hit and miss for me with Don Cheadle's movies. John Goodman. John Goodman's in this. I love John Goodman. Brennan loves John Goodman. He's part of all of our childhoods. I mean, come on. Flintstones, Land Before Time, and then, of course, like Cloverfield Lane. That 10 Cloverfield Lane, wow, phenomenal. He's the man. John Goodman can't go wrong. And he plays a very interesting part in this movie. He's kind of, I wouldn't say he's not the bad guy at all. He's not even a bad guy, but he's not entirely a good influence on Captain Whitaker, shall I say. But he has a really good role in this. Now, we're going to talk. Now, this is going to be the spoiler. We're getting into the spoilers. So, this is your warning, your one warning. Captain, and we're going to talk about Captain Whitaker and his co-pilot. His co-pilot is a character is an actor. I want to mention this actor really quick. I have seen him in all over TikTok, and it's those little shorts where it shows a clip from a cop TV show, and it's just like, and then you get invested, and when you get invested in that, you click on the part 2, and there is no part 2, but I've seen him in a lot of stuff like that. And he played a really good role in this. He plays, of course, he plays Captain Whitaker's co-pilot at the beginning of the movie. His name is Brian Girardi. He was a very sentimental and soft character. In the movie, this is his first flight, I believe, and he's very excited for it. He's a young kid who probably just got out of piloting school, and of course, Captain Whitaker, he just got done partying the night before. He's still really drunk. He's still really high, and he's about to fly a plane. And the co-pilot recognizes this and gets kind of scared. And in fact, Captain Whitaker in the scene asks the co-pilot, in the scene, Captain Whitaker takes the oxygen mask before they take off, and he just, takes a big old whiff of it, and then he turns to his co-pilot and he's like, "You want some?" And then the co-pilot's like, "No." And I read a fact, actually, that those oxygen masks can be good for curing a hangover, which is something I didn't know, which is pretty cool. But, yeah, he's intoxicated on the job. He's about to fly a plane. He's getting slightly more high from the oxygen masks and stuff. And then they take off. And not only that, but Captain Whitaker, as the flight is going on, he gets out of the cockpit and secretly sneaks a little shooter into a coffee as he's talking to all the people on the plane, just really secretly. No one saw it, So now he's more intoxicated than he was before. And that causes a lot of issues, of course, flying a plane, but not for Captain Whitaker. So not necessarily it's his entire fault for the crash. The crash happens, I believe, because something went wrong with the engine, then something went wrong with one of the wings, and it just kind of all started going haywire. But it doesn't help that your pilot is on drugs and alcohol. And that's the troubling thing with this movie is watching this character we love so much go down this steep hole of alcoholism and drugs. It's very harsh. And for people who have been in this scenario before in their actual lives, not just being the one, drinking the alcohol or taking the drugs, just loving somebody who does take the drugs and drink the alcohol, this movie can be a very hard movie for you. It was a little harsh on me. It was a little harsh, but it was a very good reminder that they have to help themselves. And that is why Denzel in this movie has to do. He has to figure out a way to do it himself, because he is pushing everybody out of his life, because all the people he loves try to help him, except for John Goodman. Everyone he loves tries to help him, getting him off this path, and he denies their help, saying he's fine. And that is how it goes in real life. And that's why this movie is very good at portraying the realism of alcoholics. It is phenomenal at that. Everything they did in this movie, every step they took, they were phenomenal with portraying an alcoholic and a drug addict, And it's just really hard watching this character slip down, seeing all these people trying to help him, seeing all these people love him, and he just pushes them away because he's either drunk, he's high, or he wants to get drunk and high. And it's just a very heartbreaking thing that we have to watch. And that's why Denzel's role in this is so good. He makes it so real, and he makes it so sad and emotional, and that's why he's phenomenal in this movie. But of course, the alcohol in this movie does affect a lot of things. And Denzel, now, he flies the plane, of course. He's drunk. He manages, as I said in the beginning, sometimes miracles are not what they seem. He manages to do the impossible and flies the plane upside down, leveling them out, which allows him to crash slowly into a field. Now, of course, it's a crashing plane, so there are going to be some tragedies, and there were. I think there were two tragedies. There were two. I guess I don't know what you call them. They're the ladies who serve you the nuts, the stewardess, and two of them, they passed away in the movie, and one of the stewardess was with Captain Whitaker the night before getting high and drunk. So there are two people on that plane right now who have alcohol and drugs still in their blood. No one else does. Now, I mean, for all I know, some of the passengers could have been a little slosh, but hey, it's a plane. It's something that that we have to be conflicted with, because we know that this girl drank and smoked with Whitaker the night before, and we know that. but we know who actually drank the bottles on the plane, and that was Whitaker. And that's where this controversy comes in. And that's also where the government involvement comes in. And that's Don Cheadle's part. Don Cheadle, he works for an agency. I'm pretty sure, he works for this plane agency that, what am I looking for? He interrogates, plane tragedies, So he's on Captain Whitaker's case, but he's with Captain Whitaker. He's his defense attorney, basically, for this whole thing. And he knows the truth. He knows Captain Whitaker is an alcoholic. He hates Captain Whitaker. He does not have a good relationship with Captain Whitaker. Hugh is, his name's Hugh, by the way. Hugh Lang. Hugh is not a fan. And he does not know how they're going to win this case if Captain Whitaker cannot get his life together. And the really messed up part about this is, like I said, there were two people with drugs and alcohol in their system, and one of them was the stewardess. Now, this is where it kind of gets messed up, is Cheadle comes up with a plan to kind of push it on her, to blame her for the bottles that were found on the plane, which now, Captain Whitaker is conflicted with, but at this time he's under the influence of drugs and alcohol still, so he doesn't really fully comprehend the pain of the situation. And basically, he doesn't know what to do. He's very conflicted, and it's a very tough choice. This would be a very tough choice because he knew this girl. Not only were they getting drunk, they were smoking buddies, I guess, but he also, he was having a relationship with her. And he liked her, and when he lost her, it did affect him. He's a tough man, so he isn't going to show it. But after all this, they come to a conclusion that they are going to pin it on her. They're going to pin it on this dead girl, and that's not good. But that's kind of where it my opinions on Captain Whitaker fall apart. I will say, even though he was an alcoholic and a drug addict, I still had a lot of good opinions about him. He still saved, he, as they say 100 times in the movie, he was the only one that could have landed that plane. It was a miracle because he's a miracle pilot. He was the only one that could have done that. And I like that. I like that idea that, he understands the tragedy that he just put everybody in. He understands what just happened. But he still has such a big ego of what he did that also takes away from his character for me. But later on, after all this, we go to trial, of course, trial at the end of the movie. And this is one of Denzel's best performances of all time in this scene specifically. This beats I'm King Kong for me. I don't care who you are. This made me cry. It was so gut-wrenching. So we're in this scene, and so Don Cheadle and Captain Whitaker's, I'm pretty sure, flight advisor, I guess, I don't know what he's necessarily called, but they are trying to get him ready to do this trial. So they tell him, they're like, all right, you're going downhill fast. So either you stop drinking and you can live with me, and this is his advisor. This is his advisor saying this, not Don Cheadle, because Don Cheadle hates this guy. But he's telling him, you can live with me if you don't drink. If you stop drinking and doing drugs and you're sober, you can live with me as long as you want. I just want you to get out of this trial so you can fly a plane again. So, Denzel actually does go through this little bit of time where he is sober, living with him, and then we get to the trial, and he does really good. Now, Denzel is put in a hotel room with a security guard on the outside because they really do not want him drinking. They don't want him drinking, and they took all the alcohol out of the fridges, so he has no temptation, of course. There's no drugs in the room. It's a purely clean room, free of all drugs and alcohol. But what happens is later that night he notices the door to the other room in the hotel is slightly open. No one's in there. It's a vacant room. But he goes in there because he's curious, and he sees the fridge. And he opens up the fridge. No one's around him, so he's free to do this. And he opens up the fridge and he sees shooters. And the fridge is stacked and stacked and stacked of beer, shooters, vodka bottles, just all the necessities of an alcoholic. And he takes a bottle, grabs a bottle, but then he slams it right on top of the fridge. Because then he decides, I'm not going to do it. I'm sober, I'm clean, I feel good. And he puts it back. And then he grabs it. And he goes back to his room. Well, we cut to the next morning. Don Cheadle and his Denzel's advisor, they're excited to get him ready for the trial. And they try opening his door, but his door's locked. And the security guard's like, yeah, he hasn't even left the room last night. I was here all night. And they're confused. They're like, okay, let's wake him up. Let's get him up. So they're banging on the door, and they finally get in there. And lo and behold, it looks like he had a rager in there the night before. I mean, there were alcohol bottles all over the floor, pizzas all over the tables, just food everywhere, clothes everywhere. Like this was his room in high school. And this makes them pretty hurt, because they're like, well, it makes them hurt because they tried helping him for so long. They try and they try and they try, and lo and behold, it all else fails. It's like, I guess the best way to put helping an alcoholic is like building a Lego set you love. You build this Lego set, you spend this long amount of time building this Lego set, and then one day, it's a Lego set. You knock it over, it all breaks down. It all falls apart. There's no more. All that time you spent is gone. You lost pieces everywhere that you can't get back. It's gone. And, it's a very heartbreaking thing for people to deal with. And some that's like a struggle. But they're heartbroken. They're destroyed from it. It's very harsh for them to see him like this. And they get him up, and their last-ditch effort is to call my boy John Goodman. So John Goodman, in this movie, he's the man. He's the man. He's the guy with the drugs. He's the guy with the alcohol. He's Whip Whitaker's best friend for years. He's the one who's always been giving him drugs and alcohol. He's his party buddy. And John Goodman, earlier in the movie, he went to the hospital after the crash to go see him, and he was like, shot? And actually, Whip Whitaker said, no, I'm good. I'm not drinking. So in the beginning, there was this little short thing where he wasn't drinking, but he broke that real quick. He couldn't handle it. So John Goodman comes back at the end because Don Cheadle, they're like, what do we do? He's dead. He's basically dead. He's not waking up. We have a trial. And they call John Goodman, and John Goodman busts in the door, and he's like, I'm here. And he throws the advisor, he throws Don Cheadle aside, he slaps his little drug rag bag down, and he pops it open, and he just pulls out some coke, and he's like, Denzel, he's like, get up, come here. And he's like, take this. And he makes him just do a quick line. and he makes him do a couple lines, and then Denzel, he gets up, he's wide awake now, and he looks at John Goodman, he's like, oh yeah, I'm ready. So now Denzel's cracked out, he's drunk again because he took a couple swigs before the trial, so he's all better, I guess. He's ready for trial. They get to trial, and this is where it's such a heartbreaking scene. This is where he fully breaks down as a human. And he kind of releases that shell, and he's in the trial. He's getting interviewed and stuff, and they ask him if those bottles were the stewardess bottles, and then he's lying. He's doing really good at lying this whole time. He's actually getting through the case, and he's probably gonna get away with it, But then a photo of the deceased flight attendant pops up because, well, it's, they have to. And he looks her in the eyes for a while, and he realizes what he's done, and he realizes everything he's done, and he whispers in the mic, he says, God help me. And the lady, the lady asks him to say it again, and he just says it right in the mic in front of everybody. He's like, God help me. And the lady asks him, like, well, so what do you mean by that? And he says, I drank it. I did it. Those were my bottles. And she's like, did you drink the night before? And he said, yes. And he was like, and she was like, did you drink at this time? And he was like, yes, I drank that night. I drank the night before. I drank the night before that. He goes, I'm drunk right now, and that shit was hard. It was a very harsh scene. It's actually kind of getting me going right now thinking about it. But he admits, and he finally comes clean, and he tells everybody in that trial. I mean, 1,000 people broadcasted live on television. One of the biggest trials of that year, probably. Tells the whole world, I'm an alcoholic. Those were my bottles. I flew that plane drunk. I put everybody's life at stake. And he just admits that, right in front of everybody, because he's finally broke, and he just wants to feel free because he's tired of lies. He's tired of lying. His whole life is based on a lie. And that's an alcoholic. If you're an alcoholic, your whole life is based on a lie. And I say that with sincerity. I do. And he portrayed that really, really good. Really good. Now, there's a character that he falls in love with at the beginning named Nicole. And Nicole actually has her own story at the start, not even related to Whitaker at all. There's no relation between these two characters. But she's a drug addict who is addicted to heroin. And she also is a P-star. So she gets her stuff from her director. And basically she was trying to do good, but she broke that habit. So then she buys drugs, and she goes back to her apartment building, and her director actually told her, like, hey, don't inject this stuff, only snort it. This stuff's too strong for you to inject. And she's like, okay. But she's so addicted to heroin that she doesn't want to do coke, or she doesn't want to snort it. She likes the feeling of that needle. It's that sensational feeling, and she injects it. She basically ODs. She doesn't die, but she ODs, and she's in the hospital now, and she's in the same hospital as Captain Whitaker. And this is where they first meet. It's a really nice scene. So Captain Whitaker goes to smoke in one of the stairways, and I guess as they say, that's like the smoking spot for that hospital. That's where like all the patients go to smoke. And Whitaker's smoking in that spot, and then Nicole happens to walk down. She gets smoke from him, and I don't remember his name, and he's not popping up on the IMDb. But this guy plays a cancer patient, and he's the guy from Iron Man 3 who steals the Iron Patriot suit. That's all I can recognize him from. But he steals the Iron Patriot suit. And he's in this, but he plays a cancer patient. And we only see him for this one scene. He's only in it for this one scene. But he plays this cancer patient who tells Denzel and Nicole, like how it is actually physically dying. Like, he's like, I'm dying right now. I'm like, I am seeing death within a week, so I'm living my life. And he was like just having this emotional talk with them, telling them what near-death experience is actually like. And Grant Youngman. Gaunt Youngman. His name is. He's just listed as Gaunt Young Man. In this, he's played by James Badge Dale. Again, I only remember him from the Iron Patriot, but I know I've seen him in some other things. But yeah, he has a very short scene in this, but a very, very emotional and heartfelt scene. Now, Denzel and Nicole, they swap numbers. They stay in contact. Denzel actually really, really likes this girl, and he wants to have a connection with her. So he's drunk, he's driving around, and he, goes to her address just to go see her. But her landlord's kind of beating her up, being being a really bad guy. And when he walks up to the room, he's got a beer in his hand and he's drunk, and he just starts going ham on the landlord and gets him out of there. And Nicole stays with him in his safe house, I guess. Because Captain Whitaker, of course, is dealing with all this paparazzi, all these news people, and he doesn't want to deal with it. So he stays out on this cabin that his dad actually used to have, and it was his old flight cabin, and it used to have their old crop duster, and that's how he learned how to fly. So he's hiding out at his dad's old cabin, and he invites Nicole to stay with him. And Nicole does, and, some things happen. And Nicole and Captain Whitaker, they end up loving each other. They fall in love, for a while, and Nicole starts staying with him for a while. And Nicole now is clean. Nicole's been clean since the hospital. She doesn't want anything to do with drugs or alcohol. But Denzel's drunk every single night, and that's heartbreaking for Nicole. And Nicole ends up leaving because she does what's better for her, and that's right. That's what's right, and that's what people need to do in this type of situation sometimes, But Nicole leaves, and Captain Whitaker's heartbroken because he loved Nicole. Now, I don't think Nicole does come back. Nicole starts living her own life. But that's the end of the story for Nicole. But, this movie was something else. I really wish I didn't wait so long to watch it, because it was really good. I could have done a review on this movie a lot earlier, which I would have liked to do, but I'm happy I'm doing it now. As I said, I love Denzel. His performance in this, again, phenomenal. I highly recommend this movie for anybody. Even if you are going through a situation like this, dealing with someone who is an alcoholic, this movie is something else and can make you realize a couple things. And that's why I love this movie and I'm so connected to it. It's phenomenal. But like and subscribe, please. And then give us a little ding on that bell. Also, comment down below if you have watched this movie. It's been out for it's been out for 15 years. So if you haven't, you've been living under a rock. But go out and watch this movie. Give us a comment below on how you feel about it, or if you have, just give us a comment right now about how you feel about it, how you feel about their performances. Give us a comment about what you think about Denzel's performances. But our next Tuesday, Brennan is going to be doing a movie review on Back in Action. And then next Thursday, I'm going to be doing a Superior Spider-Man review. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And I will catch you guys on the next one.